This is just for us to be able to summarize the section for much more easier. Please use the chat for general conversation. Since this will be the closing section, there will be no question and answer sections, but we have the pedals. So I will invite you all to make your questions through the pedalton, and we can have also some discussions there. So we will have now with us Anne-Marie O'Hagan, that is from the Maritime Centre, the University College Cork in Ireland. Anne-Marie is the project coordinator of the SIMAtlantic project. So Anne-Marie will present us the summary of the parallel sections that we'll perform earlier. And so Anne-Marie, please, can you go? Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Anna Paula, and hello again, everyone. I hope you can all see my screen and hear me. I have the unenviable task of trying to summarize today's 4 parallel sessions, which was done very quickly. So I'm going to apologize in advance if I don't reflect everything that was said. But in terms of organizing how we were going to do this, or how we are going to do this, what I asked was that the session chairs send me 3 key points from their session, along with 1 on the transboundary aspects and 1 on kind of future MSP support needs. So thankfully I had very good chairs who all took orders, and I will briefly go through these now. So in terms of the governance session, what came out, we had a very lively discussion in that session, and what came out from that was that governance mechanisms really don't provide strong direction for MSP objectives. And obviously the MSP directive has minimum requirements in terms of what's required, but we really need to think about why we're implementing MSP. Is it for a process of change to make that change happen? Or is it for a particular outcome or a series of outcomes or a combination of all of those? The next one was more of a question really that arose in the discussions, and it was how can MSP evolve complementarity within national activities and across boundaries? And really what that means is that activities and access to resources needs to be coordinated within a maritime jurisdictional zone, for example, the exclusive economic zone, and from one EEZ to another, and that there needs to be cohesion in the outcomes. Otherwise you might end up with a result that maybe isn't a desired outcome elsewhere. So the whole process, I suppose, needs to take precedence over individual gains, and doing that, you have to take account of what's happening in your neighbouring area. Another thing that came up, and I think this probably came up in a few of the sessions, was that the existing knowledge base may not support the challenges of transboundary resources and activities, and there's lots of I know discussions in the other sessions about that too. On the transboundary cooperation side, one thing that came up was this need for formal connection points to allow different countries, I suppose, to input at different stages of the process with their neighbouring country or neighbouring area. And in terms of the support needs, really, if we're designing transformative governance, we need to have mechanisms that address fluid and dynamic boundaries. And obviously that's very much related to the land-sea interactions as well. So that came up, or that was the focus of one of the other sessions. There was a lot more. The recordings are available, so you will be able to access those on the SIMAtlantic website. The next, or the session that was on at the same time as that, was one on data sharing and stakeholder engagement. And Neil was very organised and had his wordles all ready and emailed to me. So you can see there some of the things that came up in those sessions. One of the things was obviously that MSP is very new. A lot of countries are still in their first stage of implementation. And what that means is that national priorities really have had to take focus and maybe in future more cross-border or transboundary aspects will have a different level of focus, and that will come as plans are reviewed and adapted. Another key message was to build trust and confidence with stakeholders and to use your data as evidence to support that consultation and engagement process. And I think that's something we've tried to do within SIMAtlantic. Maybe obviously with COVID it wasn't easy, but to try and combine, you know, the visual and scientific evidence that we have and use that to communicate. And that leads nicely on to the next point which came up, was to combine different approaches to communication and dissemination, because really we need everybody to be involved in this process and they have to have a sense of ownership, so therefore they need to know what's going on. In terms of the transboundary cooperation, I thought this was an interesting one from this session, because the group there felt that there was a need for clarification on cross-border and international MSP governance first. And if they had that, if there was a better idea of who is actually responsible and who is monitoring MSP implementation, then that would lead nicely on to what data and information is required and how it can be shared. In terms of the support needs, again, I thought this was pretty radical too, but the proposal for cross-border shared implementation and responsibility areas, and that maybe is possible in some areas or more possible in some areas than in others, but it could be difficult. But I think it's interesting that it came up in the context of data sharing and information. So moving on to the session on environmental assessment and moving towards ecosystem-based management. This session has just finished. So one of the points that came up there was the need to use different tools and different types of concepts within the existing framework. So things like cumulative impact or cumulative effects assessment, strategic environmental assessment, all those types of assessment processes. Again, the need for stakeholder, but as well as that expert engagement to be incorporated within the MSP process, and that would automatically improve awareness and involvement. There was also some talk about the need for standardization of methods and formats, particularly in relation to ecological components where member states are sharing the same sea basin, or I suppose third countries as well. And one element that came up there was this concept of science diplomacy and how that was needed to capitalize MSP. On the transboundary cooperation side, again, this need to share and exchange knowledge on ecosystem-based management, but also to be coherent with ecosystem functioning at certain scales. So that issue of scale, I think, has come up in all the sessions, be it the local level right up to the international and areas beyond national jurisdiction. In terms of future support needs, all the points before ask for continuity regarding partnership approaches and collaboration in order to focus on specific issues. And I think that came up very much in the governance session too, was when we were thinking about transboundary implementation of MSP, this need to take an issues-based approach. So that, I think, was probably one of the issues that came up in this session as well. And finally, but by no means least, on the land-sea interaction side, and I think this first statement is probably true for MSP as well, there is no one-size-fits-all for land-sea interactions. They're very context-specific, and that context is, you need to understand it in order to implement MSP. Again, we have the need for stakeholder engagement, but the recognition that that takes time to build up the trust and the relationships that you need to actually implement MSP. We also need to broaden our scope when thinking of land-sea interactions and move away from this narrow definition of coast and think more, I suppose, about the ecosystem and whole system. On the transboundary cooperation side, I think the land-sea interactions are complex everywhere, but particularly in the transboundary sense. So we need to recognize the common challenges, share knowledge, and work towards common solutions. And I think that's really something we would hope that the SIMAtlantic vision would do, and we'll be finalising that in the coming weeks. In terms of future MSP support needs, we do learn by actually doing. So they're not unique to MSP, and we can learn from other experiences, from other sea basins, and maybe from non-marine contexts as well. So that's a very quick summary of the parallel sessions. I'm sure if any of those points are unclear or if I've misinterpreted them, there's an opportunity using the Padlet to kind of air out some of those points a bit more. But thank you to all the chairs and participants for getting me those so quickly. And I shall stop sharing and hand back to Anna Paula.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and all of the chairs of the sections for this great job in such a short time. We have here very interesting conclusions and of very food for thought for everyone who is working in the maritime spatial plan. Thank you, Anne-Marie. So now I will pass to Tom Woolley from the Department of Housing, Local Governance and Heritage from Ireland, who is also a partner in this SIMAtlantic project, and I think deeply involved in the Maritime Spatial Plan in Ireland. So, Tom, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Anna. Can I just check you can hear me okay? Yep, great. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for attending today. Thanks to Anna for the introduction, to Anne-Marie for a fantastic summary of a packed day, and to the project team for inviting me to say a few words reflecting on the experience of being a partner in the SIMAtlantic project. So to those of you who've been able to join us for the whole of today's conference, you'll have become aware of the breadth and ambition of the project, with deliverables ranging from the strategic to the operational and the locally specific. And I hope that range gives you some insight in how you can use the outputs of the project in your work. The breadth reflects the significant ambition of the SIMAtlantic project, which is sought to inform a range of maritime spatial planning practices at various levels. What's been particularly useful about the project, from my perspective as an MSP practitioner, has been the way in which people from academia, competent authorities and agencies have come together as partners in the project from a range of Atlantic countries and have had an opportunity to work together to examine common topics of interest and advance collective knowledge and understanding. And today we've built on that further through today's activities in the conference, which has been fantastic. As a project partner, the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, the competent authority for maritime spatial planning in Ireland, has been able to learn from the diverse perspectives of others. And at the same time as participating in the SIMAtlantic project, we in Ireland have been drawing up our first marine plan, National Marine Planning Framework. But this parallel timeline has meant we've been able to share our experience of MSP development and identify MSP needs, helping to shape the project deliverables and making sure they're informed by practice. So unfortunately, no one at today's conference has been able to attend everything, although Anne-Marie did a great job of attempting that through her summary at the end there. But you'll have heard the wide range of activities that have been going on. And the project has and will be publishing a range of deliverables that will assist maritime spatial planning in the future. And these include provision of an up-to-date view of the geography, habitats, physical features, oceanography, governance characteristics of the Atlantic region, and the spatial uses and needs, giving a shared context for regional understanding to inform MSP. This underpins a vision in development to help improve future maritime spatial planning policy coherence in the Atlantic region. Next, numerous case studies have been carried out across the Atlantic region by various partners, including looking at land-sea interactions in the Irish Sea, analysis of transboundary impact assessment in the Northeast Iberian Peninsula, and examination of how to communicate maritime spatial planning in the context of the Gironde Estuary MPA. A particular case study that I've been pleased to be involved with, as presented by Adele earlier, is that our department has worked with University College Cork, as well as Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs and the Agri-Food and Biosciences Institute in Northern Ireland to look at the management of marine activities in the transboundary Carlingford Loch. The case study outputs include easy to access descriptions of activities ongoing in the region, of related pressures and impacts, and identification of responsible authorities for activities. And this is all information requested by stakeholders who see complexity as an issue in marine management. And so the outputs will help people understand in their day-to-day work in the loch how to engage with marine management more readily. A review of cumulative impact assessments methodologies was carried out in jurisdictions, and methodology that informed work on developing methodologies within SIMAtlantic itself. And these can be adapted for use in any MSP area, particularly to apply in the transboundary context, which is fantastic. As well as informing development of marine plans, this area of work will also help inform SEA practice. Obviously, those are interrelated, but worth noting. Finally, I'd like to touch on data use and sharing. The demonstrator tool, simatlantic.mspdata.eu, brings together MSP-related data and provides a digital environment to explore and promote interoperability. Accompanying the tool, fact sheets for each SIMAtlantic partner country have been produced that detail information related to MSP and address some of the technical questions related to the operation of national geoportals, including technical choices, available data sources, and data accessibility. This will assist countries in ongoing development of their own data approaches and understanding data availability and use in neighbouring countries. So it's really positive to see all these outputs, but it's worth coming back to something I mentioned earlier, which is the usefulness of the timeline of the project and how useful it's been in the context of Ireland developing its marine plan. Coming back to timelines, however, this period has been marked by the global COVID pandemic that's impacted on all our lives. For the SIMAtlantic project and so many others, it's meant limited contact between those working on the various project deliverables. And while we've taken advantage of online tools to ensure work has continued, as an example, the online conferencing tools used today, including interactive engagement through Slido, not being able to collaborate in person has reduced the ability for the international project team to come together as was intended. This has perhaps had a limited in-person exchange and opportunity for us all to work together in dedicated shared space and time to develop the project. This has perhaps had an impact on how we've made connections across various parts of the project and how we were able to share insights and knowledge to make the most of project experts who have assessed the challenges of MSP at different levels and in different countries. Possible pandemic-related limitations aside, today's SIMAtlantic closing conference shows that with the support of the right tools, ways of working and innovation, including maximising engagement through collaboration with other projects, the dedication and commitment of those involved has related in project outcomes that will inform the MSP agenda at the Atlantic in a number of important areas. SIMAtlantic provides for more integrated thinking on transboundary land-sea interaction and cross-border MSP issues in the future. I'd like to thank the whole project team for their excellent work and the opportunity to be involved. I'd also like to thank all the stakeholders that supported the project by participating in some way or providing data or research that's informed our thinking. I hope that following today's conference, you find time to review the project deliverables and that you find them helpful in your MSP work, wherever you might be. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll now hand back to Anna.
Thank you, Tom, for your words and these final messages from the outputs of this project that, as you refer, has been very important in this first MSP in the member states and important for government and also for other stakeholders, academy and the public in general. These projects, I think it's very important for exchanging all the experience As you mentioned, the pandemic took us some restrictions, but the project was able to, I think, carry on and to be successful. So, Tom, thank you for your words. Now I will pass to David San Miguel Esteban, who is from the European Climate Infrastructure and Environmental Executive Agency. Thank you, David, for joining us. Pass to you.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, and you can see the screen, the presentation?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so thank you, Ana Paula, and good afternoon to all participants, and thank you very much for inviting me and invite SINEA to participate to this final conference of the SIMAtlantic project today. I could start saying something that, yeah, in the same lines that Tom and Ana Paula say, that with the COVID pandemic and the mobility restriction that we have all suffered, getting the project to his final conference must not have been an easy task. And so my sincere congratulations to Anne-Marie as project coordinator, but of course, by extension to the full SIMAtlantic project team. So for those that who don't know me, my name is David San Miguel, and I'm project advisor in working at SINEA, Unit D3, in charge of the sustainable blue economy. You see, sorry, because I don't see the slide, you see is...
Yeah, but we are not seeing presentation mode.
Just let me check again.
And we see some black bars. No.
You see it now or no?
Not in mode presentation, but can you move to, yeah, oh, no.
Sorry?
Before it, yeah. Okay.
Now you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So as I say, maybe you don't know, but since 1st of April this year, our unit has become part of the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, name it SINEA, to implement the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, which is the successor of the EMFF. But before talking about MSP needs, I would like to reflect briefly from where we come from in order to better understand where we are going. And for that, I should start talking about the MSP directive, because it is a central element and in a way the reason why we are here today. 7 years ago, there were very few of us discussing or even knowing about MSP. Today, not only we talk and discuss, but it is also in the EU agenda, and there is a broad consensus that MSP can be an effective tool to pursue the concept of blue sustainable economy. And most important, we have maritime special plans adopted by the member states. So I would say that this is already something very tangible, a direct result from the directive, and an important step forward in the right direction and a first milestones toward achieving a sustainable blue economy. And I think this is an important message to convey to the world audience today, because it is thanks to the directive that today the EU is at the forefront of MSP worldwide. And it's not just me saying that, as there are other voices highlighting the advances state of play of implementation in the EU. For example, the MSP Global Project, implemented by IOC UNESCO, which operates on a global scale, referred to the EU as one of the world's most advanced regions on maritime spatial planning. And let's admit it's only after the adoption of the MSP directive that then you have structural funds come in support of MSP process, such as the EMFF did in the period 2014-2020, co-financing a number of MSP cross-border projects that have contributed to bring us this far. And I think that SIMAtlantic, which is co-funded as well by the EMFF, represent a good example of what I am talking. But before going further, I would like to explain also very shortly a process that is very important for SINEA, as my intention is also to present to you the needs to support the MSP in the coming years. As you can imagine, ideas have to come from somewhere. So for us, it's very important to follow closely what happens in practice. And I will say that our main link with the regions and stakeholders and MSP are the projects. And I mean the people working on those projects. So it is very important to receive the feedback from you. And that is why we always encourage projects to proactively provide feedback at the end, as we take it into account in the preparation of the next call for proposals, but also in other initiatives. An example of this is the creation of a technical expert group on data for MSP, a group of experts from across the EU that was set up at the request of the organizations involved in the MSP projects. And although it's supported by CINE and DG Mare, it is led by them. But of course, projects are not the only sources, as we also receive feedback from workshops and events that are organized across the EU on MSP, sometimes also by our member states. We also launch independent studies to get a better understanding on certain aspects. Just to give you an example, the study on the economic impact on MSP, and we are going to, I will say a few words about another study on ecosystem-based approach. In the same vein, we also have the assistance mechanism, but I think that you all have here one of the expert of the assistance mechanism this morning. So I'm sure that most of you already know that prepares a technical study, organize also capacity building workshops, and supports the setting up and running of certain activities such as the technical expert groups. And in addition to that, DG Mare leads the member state expert group on MSP, where the implementation of the directive is also followed up and discussed closely with the member states. So projects have been and are an important element to implement the MSP. Since 2014, a number of cross-border MSP projects have been co-funded through the MFF financial instrument to assist our member states in the development and establishment of maritime spatial plans. And they have resulted in a number of deliverables, baseline studies, recreation of future scenarios, development of tools and guidelines, to allow member states to increase their capacity and equip them with the necessary scientific tools and evidence for the elaboration of the maritime spatial plans in compliance with the MSP directive. Just between 2014 and 2020, 27,800,000 euros were earmarked for MSP projects only under the MFF. And in these projects, a large number of entities and institutions across our member states, including research institutes, public administrations, and universities, and of course, the MSP competent authorities, have been involved. So thanks to this, a significant number of MSP tools, policy papers, lessons learned, and good practice are available today, which was not the case a few years ago. And we have the possibility of having a community of practitioners which make it easy to work together to face the next challenge on MSP. Of course, all project results can be easily found in the websites of the projects, but many more can be found in the repository we have created with the EU MSP platform.
David,
yeah?
I'm sorry. I think that some people are seeing some black boxes in the screen.
Sorry, some people, but you know.
Yeah, I see some. Yeah, 2 black boxes.
In this slide or in the last one?
Yeah, in the entire presentation. I don't know if there is, but if you cannot manage, you can proceed.
I don't know what it is.
No, it's okay. You can.
It's still the same?
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Okay, you can go on, please.
Just let me. Now it's better or no? It's the same.
It's just one now in the top of the screen, just one black box.
Okay, let me just continue. Yeah. Well, here you can see, I mean, the plethora of projects that has been developed, implemented in the Atlantic North Sea, and also in other sea basins across the EU. One important aspect in the MSP projects has been, well, they have been key for the implementation of MSP at both levels, national and EU level, and have delivered practical results that have been uptaken by the member states and the European Commission. So an example of this, for example, is the development of tools such as base maps. You see in the left side, there is a number of projects that has been, you know, over the years build one each other, and they have contributed to, for example, this result base maps. This is in the Baltic Sea, which is an interactive mapping service for accessing to the Baltic Sea maritime spatial planning data, for which several projects have contributed. The same case applies for the SIMAtlantic data portal, where previous projects have also contributed to it. And synergies have also led to other practical results at EU level. For example, in the field of MSP data harmonization, you see that projects have also bring capacity, you know, produce workshops for capacity building on MSP and inspired data model. And they have worked together with EMODnet to integrate the plans into the EMODnet Human Activities portal. So thanks to the joint effort, in the future, we will have all the MSP plans digitally available. And I think that everybody can see the usefulness of these tools in making plans more coherent across national boundaries and protect marine ecosystem at the scale that is needed. This somehow summarize what we have done so far, but it is not the end, because there is still a lot to come. So I would like to present now what we can expect in the coming years. So now we are moving from EMFF, that it was the previous financial instrument, to the MFAF, which is the new. And as you may know, and it was presented as well this morning by my colleague Juan Ronco, the European Commission presented the European Green Deal, which provides a roadmap with actions to move to a clean and circular economy and stopping climate change and revert biodiversity loss and cut pollution. Because of its special dimension in our oceans and seas, MSP can act as a powerful enabler of the European Green Deal. And this is the case for several initiatives that it was presented as well this morning by my colleagues, so I'm not going to spend too much time on those, but just to mention some of them. In addition to this, in May this year, and to fully embed the sustainable blue economy into the Green Deal, the Commission adopted a communication on a new approach for a sustainable blue economy. For example, the allocation of maritime space for increasing marine renewable energy production and foster regional cooperation between member states will be essential, and maritime spatial planning will play a key role in this regard. So naturally, in our next call for proposals, we'll aim to respond to these emerging objectives and to fund projects to develop innovative responses to tackle this specific challenge in the context of the Green Deal. But like in the previous MSP calls, the call for proposals will not provide, well, will provide a framework for action, but it doesn't go into how specifically applicants have to implement this. We are not such prescriptive, as applicants know better than we do what tools, approaches, or mechanisms are necessary in each sea basin to successfully implement and adjust, if necessary, the newly adopted plans to the next challenges. So the following are the challenges that EU member states might encounter when putting into effect their maritime spatial plans. So moving from establishment of the plans to the implementation of the plans. As you see, the first one is the European Green Deal, how to reflect and align the maritime spatial plans with the ambition of the European Green Deals. So the idea is to the plans to be consistent and contribute to the objectives and the implementation of the new EU priorities. It can, just to mention some examples, the climate change, what are the mitigation measures to dedicate enough space for the clean energy, renewable energy, sustainable production, and so on. A second point, and is the emphasis is in the sustainable, is the applying an ecosystem-based approach. And here is a general concept, because ecosystem-based approach, I mean, is a concept, but there is also support by different also directives, such as the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, Water Framework Directive, Environmental and Strategic Environmental Directives. So here again, how to reinforce this linkage between the directives in order to be sure that MSP and the plans are in compliance with all these directives and they are sustainable. The third one is the safe basin. We have here this morning the importance of transboundary. So we would like to continue with this transboundary because there are common challenges, exchange of good practice between the different member states, and also the community of practice. I mean, at the very end, you have a pool of experts from different member states working together. And this is very good because sometimes projects are less official, they are more informal, and sometimes they can move quicker than officials ways. So I think it's very good to build this community of practice where people can work together. And the last point is making MSP digital. We have already started, but we would like to in the MSP directive was not a requirement to have or to submit a digital MSP, and I think in the future we need to move this to this direction. We have already, get some MSP in digital MSP plans in digital, but I think that in the future we would like to have all of them to be digital. So this is just a piece of information. It's my last slide. So as a final point, just to share with you a current open call for proposals on MSP under the Horizon Europe program. The deadline is the 6th of October 2021, so please don't miss this one. From Cine and Digimare, we are going to soon launch our next call for proposals on MSP. And in terms of events, I just wanted to share with you the online seminar on applying an ecosystem-based approach. This comes from the result of a study funded by EMFF, and they have come with some tools for applying ecosystem-based approach, and we will do this with also together with MSP Global Project. And the 5th of October, this is the final conference on the MSP Global Initiative. So I will invite you to also join this final conference, which will present, also the state of play of MSP at the global scale. So thank you very much, and I pass the floor to you.
Thank you, David, for these informations on the coming actions and events. And of course, that will bring us to perspective in the next MSFD calls and what projects can we apply for to continue this work on the transboundary issues. Thank you, David. So now I will move to Difna Keogh from the Department of Foreign Affairs in Ireland, who will present us the presentation regarding perspectives on cooperation. Difna?
Thank you, Ana Paula. Can you hear and see me okay?
No, that's just here, but not seeing you. No.
No. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Ana Paula. So good afternoon to you all, and let me begin by thanking the SIMAtlantic project team for the invitation to present here today. I always like to take the opportunity to talk about the Atlantic. I'm here in my current role as chair of the Atlantic Strategy Committee for 2021. Ireland is in the chair, and the Atlantic is an area which is very close to my heart and to the heart of all the members of the Atlantic Strategy Committee. So by way of background, in 2021, we are celebrating 10 years of the Atlantic Maritime Strategy, which was adopted in 2011 in response to demands from stakeholders in the maritime sector for increased communication and cooperation in the Atlantic area is precisely what we're talking about here today. Implementation of the strategy back then was done via national submissions, but via member state regional submissions, regional authority submissions, and joint submissions by 4 Atlantic member states, the existing 4 that are there today, which are France, Spain, Portugal, and Ireland. The UK were to join the group later, and obviously they left again a year or 2 ago. So foundational work and agreement for the strategy was done at the European Council through the Friends of the Presidency group, integrated maritime policy. And the initial strategy grouped together challenges and opportunities facing the Atlantic region under 5 main thematic headings, and the Atlantic Strategy Action Plan, which was intended to operationalize the strategy, was launched at an event in Ireland in 2013. So the action plan then underwent a midterm review in 2017, which, although it found that the plan could be linked to over 1,200 new maritime projects and nearly €6 billion of investments, it also found that there remained further potential in the plan to create even more impact. So stakeholder feedback was sought in 2018 by way of public consultation and member state workshops, which had led to this revised Action Plan 2.0, which was adopted just last year in July of 2020. So the Action Plan 2.0 includes 4 interconnected pillars, which address key challenges that one coastal region or one member state alone cannot solve. So Pillar 1 deals with ports as gateways and hubs for the blue economy. Pillar 2 with blue skills of the future and ocean literacy. Pillar 3 deals with marine renewable energy, and Pillar 4 with healthy oceans and resilient coasts. It has evolved such that representatives from the 4 member states have taken a lead on each of these pillars, with Ireland's Irish Maritime Development Organisation leading on Pillar 1, Portugal's Ciência Viva leading on Pillar 2, the Basque Energy Agency in Spain leading on Pillar 3, and Pôle Maritime Atlantique from France leading on Pillar 4. And these pillars are being led by pillar coordinators, who are essentially ambassadors for the Atlantic, who are doing the groundwork now to lay the foundation for implementation of the action plan throughout the lifetime, and for the concepts being discussed now in this kind of bedding in period to become deliverable projects such as your own in the future. And while the pillars of the action plan focus on 4 broad headline areas, if we've learned anything, I think, in the last couple of years, is that we need to build adaptation into what we do. And so as implementation of the plan evolves and develops, we will continue to consider ways in which we can concentrate, focus, and specialize our efforts in all sectors of the maritime community that need development and support as we continue to work to support the Atlantic maritime sector. MSP is equally as important to all pillars of the action plan, with Pillar 1 looking at the development of ports, including within MSP frameworks, Pillar 2 and 3 dealing with increased awareness, knowledge, and Pillar 4 then specifically addresses the issues of coastal observation, protection and resilience, and one of the key actions under Pillar 4 aims to share best practices on the application of maritime spatial planning to coastal adaptation, resilience, and applicable environmental assessments. And this event here today and the work of the SIMAtlantic project throughout its lifetime links directly to this goal, and the discussions and conclusions from today's conference will provide a rich source of information and knowledge to help underpin the implementation of this action. Project collaboration is a key feature of the Atlantic strategy, and the SIMAtlantic project demonstrates all that can be achieved with good collaboration, with clear goals, and with a can-do mindset. And I will be certainly bringing today's outcomes and deliverables to the attention of across all of the pillars, but particularly to the attention of the Pillar 4 coordinator. I would just take the opportunity to remind you all that the Atlantic Stakeholder Platform Conference is taking place in Dublin on the 21st of October. It will necessarily be a hybrid event, as there are still some pandemic restrictions in place in Ireland, but I would encourage you all to join virtually in the plenaries and the workshops, which will explore the Atlantic strategy, its deliverables, what has happened in the last 12 months, and what we hope to achieve in the near future. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you today. Thank you for the work you've done throughout the lifetime of the project and at this conference today. And thank you for the contribution you are all making to support the Atlantic and its goals and the strategy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Difna, for all this information and the summarize of this action plan and the plan for the maritime special plan, and also the importance of this SIMAtlantic project in the pillar 4 that you mentioned. And thank you for taking the message and the conclusions from this project to this action plan. Thank you very much for your intervention. Now we are moving for the last speaker of our section today. That we are on time. Thank you all for keeping your presentations shortly. So now I will going to pass to Nicolas Bassin from the Marine Planners Network at the United Nations Environmental Program. Pass to you, Nico.
Thank you very much, Ana Paula. Aloha from the beautiful Hawaii. No, I'm joking. I'm in my room, actually. I would love to be in Hawaii right now, but the setting on the background and the shirt actually makes the mood, so I'll start with that. Just a quick correction, of course, Marine Planners is not at the UN Environment Program, but it's a non-profit association in Italy, just to be clear on that. So I would like to thank, first of all, Anne and Oscar and the whole SIMAtlantic consortium for inviting me to have this brief talk here with you. And I would like to congratulate all of you for the successful conclusion of the SIMAtlantic project. I'm really keen in knowing more and seeing the final results of this project. So as introduced, I'm Nicolas Bassin, and I'll be doing a brief presentation on the perspective from young and early career marine planners and explaining a little bit what we're doing actually with the Marine Planners Association. So just a quick background. I have a bachelor in naval and nautical architecture at the University of Genoa in Italy. I then moved in doing a beautiful master degree, an Erasmus Mundus master degree between the University of Venice, of Sevilla, and the Azores on maritime spatial planning. And I then started working at the University of Venice as a researcher and teaching assistant, and then as a consultant and project manager at Corilla, which is the consortium for coordination of research activities concerning the Venice Lagoon system. Together with some colleagues and friends, we then founded the Marine Planner Nonprofit Association. And from more or less a year, I'm working as an associated expert at the UN Environment Program in Kenya. I've been working in different MSP related projects, mainly focusing on the Mediterranean basin, such as the Supreme and Seamless Med project, so supporting maritime spatial planning in the Eastern and Western Mediterranean area, as showed also by David. The Interreg Adrian Porto di Mare project, which focused mainly on geoportal of tools and data for sustainable management of coastal and marine environments. An Erasmus Plus project, which is called Marine Ecomed, which is marine education communication network on the Mediterranean Sea. And last but not least, the MSP Med project, which is currently ongoing, so towards the operational implementation of MSP in our common Mediterranean Sea. From these projects, we also, together with the National Research Council, Corilla, and the University of Venice, we also supported Italy's national MSP implementation process. So we did technical assistance to the National Competent Authority, which is the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, or actually it changed name, so it's the Ministry of Sustainable Infrastructure and Mobility. And we did technical assistance to the national technical committees, subcommittees, and maritime regional authorities. During this time, we did numerous activities also with the external partners, and I'm really happy to see here many familiar faces, well, names in the chat, a lot of friends, so it's nice to be here again in the MSP family once again. We did some activities regarding mainly stakeholder involvement with the MSP Challenge board game through UNESCO ISC, and the MSP Challenge Adriatic edition through the Breda University and through the software they developed. For what concerns marine planners, we are recently born non-profit association of young or still young researchers, practitioners, and friends passionate about ocean, sea, coast, and everything that has somehow a marine prefix. The association is actually a platform to exchange practices and experiences, but it's also a legal institution to work on projects independently. It's a place to showcase skills and works and to jointly work on research. And we are currently involving international experts, research institutes, NGOs, university, etc. You can see here some of the contacts on social media, on the website, if you want to have more information on this. We are currently displaced all over the place, let's say. Our members are from 14 and plus different countries, and we actually meet every 3 to 4 months to discuss and have our general assemblies. Our past activities are somehow summarized here, at least the main ones. So we ran a training workshop in the Maldives in January 2020, just before the pandemic, and we are really lucky with that. We then proposed different calls, such as the SSRC call for proposal, or SMILO call for proposal, Erasmus Plus calls, and IUCN. We are part of the Marine Ecomed project. We participated in Maldives Marine Science Conference as an output also of the training workshop. We participated together with Joanna to the Early Career Marine Planner webinar series organized by University of Liverpool. We participated in the MSP global consultation process in the Mediterranean, and so on and so forth. Of course, the most catchy activity we did in the past was the training workshop in the Maldives. It was a beautiful experience, of course, and it was 7 days intensive training taking place in Magudu, in the Fafu Atoll, at the premises of the Mare Center of the University of Milano Bicocca. The training involved MSP practitioners belonging to diverse research fields, ranging from oceanography to marine biology, planning, environmental management, and so on, from all over the world. And this was done, of course, in collaboration with the University U of Venice, the Mare Center, and the University of Milano Bicocca. So going back to the main theme, of course, when asking why MSP, this is the first image that comes to my mind, and I always like to share this. Here you can see the view of the Pacific Ocean from space, and it really captures what actually the ocean means to us, so means to our planet, which is mainly a blue planet. And so why MSP, why we should manage sustainably and appropriately our main resource on this planet. And why transboundary MSP? Well, as you know, and as you have been discussing, I think during the previous sessions, the marine, ocean, sea realm is a highly dynamic environment. There's high exchange of substances. It's practically borderless environment, and the political demarcations are just on paper. So it's the need for a transboundary approach when planning is widely acknowledged. And of course, this project, the SIMAtlantic project, can be a stepping stone to achieve transboundary MSP in the Atlantic area. And of course, studies and many authors argued that it's even stronger, the need to transboundary plan on the marine space than on land. So adopting a transboundary approach is essential and imperative in order to avoid user-user conflict and avoid overexploitation of marine living and non-living resources, but also habitat fragmentation of national but also transnational marine natural ecosystems, and effectively tackle pollution, as I was mentioning before. But when talking about transboundary planning and transboundary MSP, it comes to mind also not just the planning of two different maritime areas, but also the integration of different planning mechanisms and frameworks, such as land and sea planning somehow. So trying to fit and trying to avoid impacts from land to the sea and vice versa is essential, and the integration of these planning realms and system is fundamental. As you can see from these sketches, the space of action of the different planning frameworks is really different and somehow separated in the current national frameworks, at least speaking for Italy. And so MSP acts in the maritime space, of course. Then there's the integrated coastal zone management, which acts on the coastal strip, and then there's the traditional spatial planning, land planning, which acts inland, of course. But how do also the sectoral planning affects the different relationship between the planning frameworks? So how the different activities somehow fall into the different planning regimes. That's an important point to make, and more integration in these planning regimes is absolutely needed. So, of course, from my experience, a multi-scalar approach when talking about transboundary MSP is needed. So we must plan at proper scales. So a strategic versus high resolution planning. If we're talking about wide and huge maritime areas, we can focus on more strategic guidance. But then when we're going to specific issues, specific conflicts and crowded areas, we must apply a high resolution planning, specific and context based. So it's important to have an integrated planning and also coherence of plans and policies. So it will be coherence with large scale vision, with wider strategic plans, with planning of land, of course, and that brings up land-sea interactions and the wide range of policies which are currently involved in all this. And last but not least, of course, the ecosystem-based approach is essential. And I think also from the seminar that was suggested by David, it's a fundamental approach. So trying to understand the ecological coherence of analysis and measures, and take into account, besides the political boundaries also, or at least political and institutional boundaries, also the functional boundaries of the ecosystems, and also the impact and effectiveness of measures at larger scales. Data, of course, will never be enough, and we'll never have enough data to be completely sure, but some of the data gaps that that we've experienced in the Mediterranean mainly involve knowledge gaps in fine-scale distribution of high valuable benthic habitats, such as coralligenous formations or rocky bottoms, for high-resolution planning, and so for actions and measures at high-resolution scale. Knowledge gaps in the distribution of high valuable pelagic species, such as megafauna, and for example, in the Pelagos sanctuary, that would be a really important knowledge and data to have available to plan properly that valuable area. Data gaps on the soundscape and the potential impacts of underwater sound. That's another important issue that I would like to highlight. But also the spatial knowledge of the distribution and intensities of all the fishery activities. So going from small scale recreational, but also commercial and different fishing techniques. Having that available data would mean a lot for planners in that case. Of course, fine scale maps of maritime traffic with the average routes intensities for each vessel type would be really important to have a clearer picture of what is the current vessel density, which type of vessels are currently crossing the area that we're planning would be important. And last but not least, the improvement and integration of land-sea interaction models including land-based sources and pollutant loads. Some of the conclusions, of course, there's a need of a careful problem scoping. So different needs and different planning skills will guide the planning process in the end. The best available knowledge is not a limit, but an opportunity to collect even more meaningful information and not just rely on the readily available data. There's the need of multiple types of planning actions and measures at multiple scales. So the need for an operational planning at finer scale for more crowded areas, impacted areas, and conflictual areas. Of course, it's a learning by doing process, or at least it was since when I was working in, and it's a knowledge sharing approach. And so in this, the role of EU projects is fundamental. I've experienced that in the projects I was working in, and I can imagine that you have experienced this in SIMAtlantic. And of course, the involvement and engagement, and I have to flag that, of younger generation and local knowledge is fundamental. Since we're planning for the future, the involvement of youth is fundamental on this. That's it from my side. I'll leave here my contacts and all the information. And thank you once again for inviting me at this session.
Thank you, Nicolo, and for bringing here some issues and important message that some of them matches with the conclusions of the sections that we have today. So thank you for the presentation. I would like to draw your attention for the chat, where there is some useful links, and also a question for you, Nicolo, from Martin. If you can share the link of the graphics that you presented here. So if you can share the link, please put this on the chat. Thank you. So we are moving to the end of this conference. Before the end, I will pass the floor to Anne-Marie as the project coordinator of the SIMAtlantic project, and the great job that Anne-Marie was taking all through these months and guiding us to this conference. So Anne-Marie, please take the floor.
Thank you, Anna Paula, and I know we're running slightly ahead of schedule, which is nice at this point in the day. I think everybody will agree. It's been a long, informative day, but also very interesting and hopefully engaging. So I just want to say thank you to all the chairs for keeping us on time, for all the panelists and speakers for their contributions, but particularly to the attendees for giving up a day and actually participating with your questions, with your comments. Obviously, in the times that we're in right now, that's really fundamental to the success of online events like this. So a sincere thank you from us for doing that. And I would also like to say thank you to all the SIMAtlantic partners for their work over the past 2 years and almost 3 months. The project will be officially ending at the end of this month, so we're in the final stages of getting all our deliverables ready, and they will be available, as we said earlier, on the project website. Today's discussions and observations and feedback will definitely help us to write the final technical report, and where we can, we'll take some of those relevant messages, I suppose, into the associated deliverables as well. So it's very useful for us to get feedback. And just before we sign off, I really want to say thank you to Joanna and Oscar in the University of Liverpool, who, without them, I don't think today would have happened, to be brutally honest. They looked after all the organizational and technical aspects of Zoom, and I think it worked very well. And I just want to say thank you particularly to them, because they put in an awful lot of effort. As far as I know, the Padlet is still operational, so if there are any outstanding questions for us as a project team or anything specific that anybody wants to raise, then please do that, and we will try to follow up with you if needs be. So that's all I want to say. Thank you all for your contributions, and hopefully we will see each other in person, perhaps at something in the future. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I hope so that we can meet all in the future in presence. And thank you again for all the team that was behind this conference, and it's involved, of course, some technical issues, but I think that everything went very well. So just final things, recording of all the sections will be available via the website. As Anne-Marie said, the Padlet will remain open for a while, so we can continue the discussing there. And we would like to hear your thoughts on the conference, and within the next few days you will receive a link to the short feedback of the survey. So once again, thank you all for this fruitful day and for this conference section. So bye-bye and see you.